Супер. А у нас майже всі вернулися, і я пропоную тоді починати наш круглий стол. І ми дуже раді, що у нас сьогодні прийшли наші спікери, що у нас тільки так само учасників круглого столу і гостей. І наш круглий стол має назву «Про тенденції в українському суспільстві під час війни», ВПО, сіра зона і як взагалі поєднується між собою громадська активність. Мене звати Світлана Крот, я буду сьогодні модерувати цей круглий стол. Ми вас будемо дуже заохочувати приймати участь в нашій дискусії. І у нас сьогодні будуть ще такі прекрасні спікери, про діяльність яких можна говорити взагалі цілий день, тільки їм присвячувати цей круглий стол, але, на жаль, у нас немає такої можливості, тому ми будемо дуже швидко працювати і намагатися представити і наших спікерів, і ще проговорити деякі питання, які є дуже важливими зараз для громадянського суспільства. Якщо ви звернули увагу, у вас є форми, які ми вас попросимо прочитати, якщо ви знаєте українську, якщо англійську, на жаль, я зараз скажу, які там є питання, і просимо робити нотатки під час наших дискусій для того, щоб відповісти на дуже важливі питання, які є в цих формах. Який має бути розвиток громадянського суспільства далі, які є виклики перед громадянським суспільством і які взагалі можуть бути потім моменти в постконфліктний час. Так, зараз. І судячи з того, що всі вже готові, ми можемо починати. І давайте, як ми будемо працювати. У нас буде виступати спікер чи спікерка, а після цього у вас буде можливість послухати нашу спікерку чи спікера і задати 1 чи 2 питання. А якщо у вас нема питань, ми будемо дивитися в онлайн, якщо там теж нема питань, будемо рухатися далі. Після того, як ми закінчимо загальне обговорення, ми попросимо вас тоді вже поговорити про питання, добре? Тож, дозвольте представити вам нашу першу спікерку, яка є представницею організації ДРА в Україні. Це Друкарня, Центр громадянського суспільства. І це наша Катеріна Пасікова, вона є менеджеркою проєктів, і вона зараз розкаже взагалі, яким чином змінилась діяльність Друкарні під час війни. Прошу.
Доброго дня. Хотіла розказати трошки про нашу взагалі роботу, чим ми займалися раніше. Наша організація працює з 2019 року. Ми представництво АОСТАВШ на сході України, місто Слов'янськ. Займалися взагалі сенс створення нашої організації – це розбудова громадянського суспільства. Теми в нас були ключові – це політична партисипація, міжнародний обмін, проекти пов'язані з охороною довкілля та протидії змінам клімату. В лютому, звісно, нам довелося через небезпеку переїхати, і ми переїхали на західну частину України, але також продовжили підтримувати активістів-переселенців, бо ми розуміли, що якщо ми підтримаємо активістів, то вони далі дуже швидко встануть на ноги і почнуть далі працювати над розвитком нашої України, над нормалізацією ситуації. В нас було, ми одразу подумали, які найбільші потреби у переселенців, ну це, звісно, у житлі, бо вони переїжджають в інший регіон взагалі України, Україна така немаленька, і вони розуміють, що спочатку взагалі там можуть навіть не мати ніяких контактів, і ми вирішили створити шелтер для активістів-переселенців, для того, щоб вони могли бути разом, для того, щоб вони могли спілкуватися і могли взаємодіяти разом, ну і також, як сказати, трошечки психологічно реабілітуватись. Також в нас є на базі 2 автобуси. Дякуємо німецькому громадянському суспільству за надання їх. І з допомогою їх ми можемо доправляти гуманітарну допомогу на схід України і також внутрішньо переміщеним особам по всій Україні і також в тому регіоні Західної України, де ми зараз знаходимося. Це в нас такі психологічні реабілітації для переселенців, бо більшість людей Сходу України не були на Заході і не бачили, взагалі іншу частину України і гори наші Карпати, тому ми вирішили створювати для них такі поїздки, де ми також робили психологічні сесії для їх підтримки. Деякі На контакті ми тримаємо наших активістів, які роз'їхались по всій Україні, зі Слов'янська, з Донецької, з Луганської області, і ми регулярно зустрічаємося з ними в Zoom. І також спілкуємося, в кого як справи, хто зараз чим займається, чим ми можемо бути один одному корисні та чим ми можемо допомагати один одному. Також долучались до регулярних наших проєктів. Це в нас була така Let's Do It Ukraine. Ми збирали сміття і сортували його. І в нас була вперше локація, ми вже третій раз робимо цю акцію. Вперше у нас локація була, де були всі переселенці, тобто з Луганської, з Миколаївської області, з Донецької, з Маріуполя. Також ми спілкуємося з релокованими організаціями. Це кав'ярня зі Слов'янська, дуже популярна, яка зараз приїхала в Івано-Франківськ. Також зустрічаємось з усіма, спілкуємося, підтримуємо один одного. Це в нас також були психологічні сесії, психологічної підтримки і такі презентації стосовно того, як війна, воєнні дії в Україні впливають на довкілля. Це трошечки про наші проекти. Це шелтер для активістів, тут не так багато фото. В принципі, так, це все наші активісти, за якими ми дуже сумуємо. Це, в принципі, мабуть, все, що я хотіла сказати про нас.
Супер, дуже дякую. Так. І скажіть, будь ласка, чи є зараз питання до Капіталіни з того, що вона розповіла про їх діяльність? Чи я задала питання? Немає. Я просто хочу додати до того, що направду в Україні до цього було дуже так розвито громадянське суспільство. Тобто ви всі знаєте, що це було однією із рушійних сил взагалі, що допомагало рухати державу, робити значущі зміни, відновлювати нашу державу і налагоджувати зв'язки після того, як ми все пережили в 2014 році, втручання в нашу взагалі на нашу територію Росії. Але коли почалась війна повномасштабна, яка почалась вторгнення саме повномасштабно на нашу територію, дуже багато організацій вимушені були релокуватися, тобто переїхати на нові території, і вимушені були будувати взагалі свою діяльність наново. І дуже багато хто з них почали змінювати свою діяльність, хтось укріпив, хтось наростив, а хтось почав змінювати. Бо до цього було дуже багато партисипації, до цього було дуже багато адвокаційних, дуже багато таких заходів, які були на підсилення, знаєте, вже розвитку громади. Зараз, на жаль, ми всі знов почали в той час, а з такого інколи з нуля хтось почав, тому ми сьогодні будемо говорити про діяльність тих організацій, які були релоковані, переїхали, але знайшли в собі силу робити і працювати з цим далі. Це якраз в нас буде якраз теж один з таких представників були саме Друкарня, і будемо говорити ще про ті організації, які до цього так були на цих містах, але теж змінили свій фокус діяльності. Тому я пропоную зараз ще поговорити з нашим наступним спікером, його звати Ярослав Бойко. Він представник ініціативи «Все буде добре», і вони так само релоковані були з Донецької області. Пан Ярослав, вам слово, будь ласка, розкажіть про вашу діяльність останні 7 місяців, чим займалися.
Вітаю. Останні 7 місяців. Ми почали займатися з 24 лютого тим, що, мабуть, об'єднувати, мабуть, зразу відповідати на той виклик, який пішов. Тобто в 12-й годині 24 лютого вже було створено мною групу, в яку доєдналися громадські діячі, органи місцевого самоврядування, керівники та органи державної влади, обласної адміністрації. Після цього все якось дуже швидко закрутилося. В моїй організації «Kuleba України» є такий проєкт «Атахаб», якого було багато волонтерів на той час. І 26 числа наші волонтери вже вийшли на евакуацію, на ЖД-евакуацію, тобто по вокзалах Краматорська, Слов'янська, Бахмута, Лимана. Тобто почалась масова евакуація людей. Це те, що я вважав за необхідне на той час. Наразі нам вдалося евакуювати за той час до сьогодні більше 370 тисяч мешканців. Як це все відбувалося? Тобто я навіть не знаю, як це сказати. Це була така лавина друзів, однодумців і тих людей, які зрозуміли, що якщо зараз не буде такого екстреного реагування, ми просто-напросто потім не впораємося, і це буде втрачене життя, це буде багато горя в нашій області, в наших громадах. До нас почали приєднуватися організації різних напрямків, різних форм власності. Тобто це давало впевненість в тому, що ми на правильному шляху. На сьогодні все буде добре. Це, мабуть, найбільше об'єднання волонтерів та громадські організації Донецької області.
Association of volunteers and civic societies in the region of Donetsk. The first organizations, in which way everything took place. I phoned Lilia, Kislitsyna. Thank you. Where are you? In Lviv. We need help for people. Please make such a phone call. In such a way of communication, we achieved the status we have now. 6,570 tons of humanitarian aid was delivered. Gorsky chicken, photogram, and other smaller partners from different countries. We are in contact with 47 Ukrainian diaspora organizations worldwide. The work we are doing now, humanitarian aid in the region of Donetsk, but in 5 other Ukrainian regions, help with the anti-missile defense, especially after the explosion of the railway station in Kramatorsk, where people were injured and were killed. We lost 2 volunteers during that strike. In the morning, after that explosion, on the border of the region of Donetsk, 122 vehicles were waiting from volunteer organizations who came to help. We understood that the railway is not secure anymore.
We understood that the situation very dangerous. I could say the following. In the Donetsk region, we are very glad that the armed forces of Ukraine are liberating cities and communities. But there are also a lot of people in the occupied territories who, as you say, who didn't see such battles and such military actions, and these people, they need our help, our aid. And if you talk about the cooperation with the state powers, at the very beginning and also now, the leaders of communities and the Donetsk authorities understood that it is necessary to cooperate with the civic organizations. Can you hear me? Everything is fine. We hear very well. Yeah, we have a break, and I wanted to remind you that you have 1 minute for your main talk. Can you hear us? Yaroslav, can you hear us? I'm sorry. We can hear very well. So if you can hear us, then everything is fine.
І тут якраз нам говорять про те, що у вас буквально хвилинка чи 2 закінчилась до кінця виступу.
You have 1 or 2 minutes up to the end of your talk. I'm sorry, I had a different translation in Zoom. Sorry.
Тобто на сьогодні
For today,
сіра зона, як ми кажемо, і ті
we are all together, and the occupied communities who are under the permanent danger, they need restoration and recreation. And the restoration we can see only in some things today. At the moment, currently, it's important to bring away people from there. That's an emergency measure at the moment.
Ситуація, яка зараз там складається, це немає газопостачання, немає світла. Тобто ми розуміємо, що великі об'єми твердопалива ми теж туди не зможемо завести, тому що йдуть постійні обстріли. Тому наразі головним пріоритетом для нашої асоціації це є евакуація населення з тих деокупованих громад, з тих громад, які не зможуть підтримувати життєздатність інфраструктури узимку. Але після цього ми однозначно розпочнемо відновлення громад. Тобто це наразі буде починатися з мілких ремонтів, з допомоги людям у медичному забезпеченні, з допомоги людям, тим, які потребують кваліфікованої допомоги, як медиків, так і соціальних робітників. Тобто, але зараз це вже ж евакуація з приблизно 13-14 громад Донеччини. Я вибачаюсь, там десь у мене був поганий зв'язок, можливо, було мене не чути.
Все супер, дуже дякую, ми вас добре дуже чули. І скажіть, будь ласка, чи є питання до пана Ярослава з залу? Нема питань? А є у нас в онлайні питання? Тоді я хотіла запитати у вас, пан Ярослав, якщо можна поставити вам питання, як ви вважаєте, що ще можна от прямо зараз робити на тих територіях, які знаходяться поряд лінією зараз розмежування, для того, щоб люди себе почували більш-менш комфортно? Що можуть громадські організації зараз для цього робити?
Наразі на сьогоднішній день гострі пріоритети – це медичне обслуговування, як я казав, і це вивоз людей. Тобто зробити щось таке, щоб люди себе спокійно почували, там неможливо. Тобто навіть якщо ми зараз забезпечуємо їх там буржуйками, твердим паливом і всіма цими речами, це не дасть можливості там себе почувати, як кажуть, безпечно. Я не знаю, там не людської мови. Я їжджу кожні два тижні, буваю в цих містах, і там немає умов для життя. Тобто то не життя. Тобто наразі, на сьогодні, то не життя. Ми тільки сподіваємося на ЗСУ, щоб вона відганяла окупантів все далі і далі. Тому що на сьогоднішній день в громадах на лінії розмежування проживання людей, воно, я вважаю, що неможливе. Тобто їх треба вивозити і треба розміщувати в центрах, треба розміщувати в інших громадах, хоча б на час оцей зимовий, до весни. Зараз впоратись з ними самостійно, громадським організаціям, державі, з тої ситуації, що склалася, зараз дуже-дуже буде складно.
Дякую дуже. У нас є питання?
Channel to us, which means you also won't hear in your ears. Whenever it's working, it will be in channel 6. So that's where you want to hear this room. But at the moment, unfortunately, they've been coming and going, and we have no control over it. Okay, good.
Окей. Дякую. А у вас було питання? Ви чули питання, чи треба продублювати? Пан Ярослав, питають, чи люди готові виїжджати, чи їх треба переконувати?
Людей, на жаль, треба переконувати, тому що багато з них не можуть, як кажуть, бросити ці свої домівки. Я думаю, що зараз ситуація зміниться. Зараз ситуація зміниться, тому що фізично знаходитися в цих містах неможливо. Неможливо це, як я казав, тобто немає світла, немає палива, тобто немає як обігріти навіть оселі, як приготувати їжу. Це буде вимушені кроки для людей, але наразі ми вимовляємо. Тобто зараз евакуація спала до мінімуму, тобто близько 200 осіб, не більше 200 осіб за тиждень виїжджає з області.
Дякую дуже. Я додам до цього, що направду людей доводиться вмовляти, бо люди, особливо старшого віку, не дуже хочуть виїжджати, бо у них є чітке розуміння, що вони нікому далі не потрібні. Це перше. А по-друге, на жаль, вони не мають ресурсу для того, щоб жити, тому що будь-яке житло коштує досить дорого. І, на жаль, Україна зараз, знаходячись в стані війни, не може компенсувати всім переселенцям. Тобто у нас є невеличка програма, вона може компенсувати там 400 гривень, можливо, за якісь комунальні послуги, але вартість зйому квартири досить висока в Україні, на жаль, в великих містах. Тому люди не можуть собі дозволити. Вони можуть жити в компактних містах проживання, але ви ж самі розумієте, що це не може бути постійно. Це тимчасові місця, і інколи умови в цих місцях не дуже придатні для того, щоб жила там велика родина з дітьми, наприклад, чи людина, яка має інвалідність. Тому є проблема, люди бояться просто їхати. Але волонтери дійсно роблять все можливе для того, щоб вивозити і маломобільних, і ті, хто не дуже хочуть, повертаються, вмовляють, але це дуже важка історія з евакуацією. І зараз евакуація ще є з Запоріжжя, тому що Запоріжжя, як ви знаєте, теж дуже багато зараз обстрілів ми маємо від російської сторони. І зараз Черкаси є таким хабом для Запоріжжя, місто, яке поруч, для того, щоб там дуже багато людей виїжджає. І ми сподіваємося, що там теж люди будуть їхати для того, щоб врятувати своє життя наразі. Дякую дуже. І от якраз про те, про що казав пан Ярослав, ще питання є. Так, будь ласка.
Дякую. Stephanie Schiffer from Kiev Dialogue. There was not always translation, so maybe I asked something you already spoke about, but I would be interested to understand the relation between the privately or the civil society organized assistance and the state organized assistance. You demonstrated very impressive how much was delivered from the civil society organizations. Can you say which relation is between civil society assistance and state organized assistance? Is it possible? And the second question, you mentioned the role of the Red Cross, which is criticized in Ukraine. Can you in general say how is the visibility and the activity of the international humanitarian organizations? Can you assess that? Are you satisfied with it, or is it problematic? So two questions.
Чи було вам добре чутне питання, чи не дуже добре чули, чи вам потрібен переклад?
Давайте трошки продублюємо, тому що так воно накладується десь два переклади до чомусь. Я зрозумів, що...
It's okay. Ігор, ми можемо вас попросити перекласти? It's okay. Ми зараз продублюємо це українською мовою. Ігор, ви зможете продублювати питання? Так, будь ласка, продублювати питання, що пані задала.
Ярослав, ви дуже багато зробили, це питання жінки, ви дуже багато зробили за цей час під час війни. І скажіть, будь ласка, як ви вважаєте, Червоний Хрест досить, чи він допомагає для Донеччини, взагалі для України? Як ви бачили їх зі сторони, як вони працюють? Тому що ви, наприклад, зробили дуже багато, але зараз, як працює Червоний Хрест, цього не бачимо.
І стосунки між владою та організацією, які в нас. Я це почув. Так. Почну з першого, там я чув за стосунки. Ми працюємо на базі меморандуму між Донецькою обласною адміністрацією. Стосунки в нас не було бюрократії, мабуть, протягом півроку з початку війни. Зараз вона вже почалася. До цього у нас була дуже гарне реагування. Ми працюємо з усіма департаментами, працюємо з керівниками, працюємо з громадами напряму, тобто з керівниками громад. Координуємось в видачі гуманітарної допомоги, в евакуації. Тобто всі дані ми зводимо в єдину систему, щоб це була статистика не тільки для нас, як для організації, але й для державних органів влади. Щоб ми розуміли, яке потрібне реагування, щоб не були пересічень, щоб не було, як кажуть, зайвого використання ресурсів. Тобто, так як ресурс для України зараз дуже цінний. Це перше питання, відповідь. На друге питання з приводу Червоного Хреста. Червоний Хрест, ну, як я бачив, почав працювати в Україні. Його стало видно на наших територіях не відразу. Тобто, перше, мабуть, місяця 3-4 місяця, на жаль, ми не бачили багато міжнародних організацій в нашій області. Тобто це була така істотна проблема. Ми не бачили не там таких же великих організацій, як Caritas, не бачили не роботи Червоного Хреста, не бачили не People людина в біді. Тобто не бачили організацій саме міжнародних великих. Можливо, це було пов'язано з якимись безпековими протоколами, але той час нам приходилось працювати самим і закривати всі потреби самостійно завдяки невеликим організаціям, невеликим громадським організаціям і координації з місцевою та державною владою. Зараз ми бачимо роботу, зараз вже робота активізувалася, і ми бачимо, як той же саме Красний Хрест заходить на територію області, на території громад і оказує підтримку нужденним, тобто людям, співпрацює з органами місцевого самоврядування, тобто з органами державної влади. Тобто на сьогодні ми це бачимо, але сказати, що ми бачимо це в таких великих об'ємах, ні, такого я не скажу, тому що наразі всі програми, мабуть, як я так вважаю, що Червоного Хреста націлені саме через
Red Cross are targeted at the state authorities, so they work via state authorities. The presence of the organization itself is not really visible, I would say. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. To be just, I must say that such big organizations like Caritas and Red Cross started to work in the territories which were safe. So they started to provide the basis needs at the very beginning, the primary basis needs. And there have been some security issues at the very beginning. In the territories where it was relatively safe, they started to work, that international organizations started to work very fast, and they covered the first needs of such people. Now there are almost no organizations like that. Red Cross is helping during the evacuation. We have two communities, Kramatorsk and Slovyansk. There have been assistants in evacuation. They were having shifts at railway stations. Sometimes we had up to 50 volunteers at the railway stations. Sometimes we had big amounts of people for evacuation, over 7,000 people, and the Red Cross and some brigades of Red Cross and teams were working there.
I can't exactly say what brigades they were, but Red Cross in any way. If you do not oppose, we switch to another speaker. If you still have questions, note them, and you'll be able to put the question later. What Yaroslav has said, we have had also another sort of activity, supporting people in normal life, in having belief and in stabilization. Evgenia Kuleba, she is from the NGO Громадський сад. I'm the head of this organization. We have been established in the year 2014. We have been established in Kiev, and the team is mostly from Kiev, but still mostly we worked in the region of Luhansk and Donetsk. Myself and my team are convinced in the force of institutions and what happened in Ukraine, starting from the year 2014, establishing and strengthening of civic society. We are observing the result of it now. Civic organizations have taken on a huge burden of tasks during the war. As the war started, we have established a contact to the mayors of the towns in the regions of Luhansk and Donetsk. The mayors were lost in the beginning. We started to evacuate people. It was our main task. A main question whether people want to leave their homes. You said already some people do not have money to lease apartments or accommodation. We have a contact to France, to in Nizza, Kana. I just want some examples. People from the regions of Luhansk, Donetsk do not agree to leave their homes, even free of charge. First of all, because they do not speak foreign languages. It's not only the financial status. Secondly, they are scared. They do not know what place they will come to, how they can establish their new homes. They are scared. Maybe they will lose their documents, and we have to convince them. Everybody who wanted to leave their homes did it during the first days, but nowadays it's almost impossible. Still, we are trying to help. We have had 7 buses from the regions of Luhansk and Donetsk, and they moved them to the eastern France. You could think it's a good idea to live in such a beautiful place. I agree with my previous colleague. It is our priority. Together with the communities, we established parks and groves, youth centers. Before the war, we wrote a map of all the cultural establishments in the regions of Luhansk and Donetsk. We'll speak later on what we could do after the war. Currently, it's very important for the civic organizations not only to support during evacuations and during medical care. It's what we are doing, Mr. Sad, humanitarian aid, medicine, foods. It's our usual work. I don't want to waste your time because all the other civic organizations are doing the same. But currently, it's important to speak about what we'll do after the war. We have established contact to the Ministry of Culture. According to our calculations, 35 to 40% of cultural institutions have been destroyed. Obviously, they cannot be rebuilt. It's cultural clubs from the Soviet time. Some of them have been neglected, but still there was a dream to renew them. Currently, almost all the civic organizations have changed their profile, humanitarian aid, medicine, evacuation, but still we might not forget that numerous organizations were dedicated to education, to culture, and in spite of the war, people feel the need of culture, and it inspires. In Mr. Sad, it's difficult for us to work with donors. I acknowledge it, but still we have a certain segment of projects from the pre-war time, because what for are we fighting if it's not for culture? we have a new project, Sady Gardens. We are researching Ukrainian gardens. We are trying to define what is a Ukrainian garden. You know, French gardens and English gardens, and it is a new characteristics of this war. More Ukrainian citizens want to reject the imperial heritage, and we are researching Ukrainian gardens this week. We'll work in Bucha, Irpin, and Borodyansk. You know all those places. They have been destroyed during the occupation of the region of Kiev. For me and for my colleagues, it's very important to not to participate like every other organizations, to participate in the same work, emergency work. We are attracting donors, and it's important, even during the wartime, to support such projects as ours. Thank you. Thank you, Evgenia. It's what we have discussed. Numerous researchers confirm that it's important that people do not have a syndrome of a postponed life, irrespective of in which condition their homes are. They still need force to rebuild their lives, to educate their children, and for that reason we have numerous organizations who support armed forces who evacuate people. It's important, but we also have organizations who work on the adaptation of the internally displaced persons, and it is important. Sven has a question.
All what the NGOs are doing currently in Ukraine. We are also working with a lot of NGOs, but my question would be, do you see also problems? So how is the situation with the gromadas, with the new people coming into the gromadas? Do you see conflict? You see conflicts coming up, and how do you deal with the conflicts in the new gromadas in Ukraine with dealing with IDPs? Yeah. What do you do for acceptance of them?
Питання інтеграції.
It is about the integration of IDPs. Of course, it is an issue of local authorities. I'm a deputy of the City Council of Kiev, and I know it internally. The issue of IDPs depends often on the local authorities and how this work is organized. I can tell you in Kiev this work is not well on a good level. IDPs often do not know where they can receive help, and it is a job of civic organizations. In Kiev, civic organizations work with IDPs better than local authorities, although it would be the first priority for local authorities. Of course, there are such organizations, but the problems, there are problems, but they are of minor character. Like in Western Ukraine, people are complaining that the prices have increased and IDPs would not behave in a correct way. But it is not on the level of official news. It is on the level of gossips. Me personally, I know how stable stereotypes in Ukraine are, and I know that such stories are often stereotypical. We have had a project about stereotypes in the East and in the West. As a result, we could reveal there are really no differences between the people. Earlier, IDPs are marginalized, but currently half of our country are IDPs, and the attitude has changed. It is a new norm for us. Sometimes we do not know how to cope of it because it was only a little time. Yesterday, a massive shelling took place in Ukraine. Numerous homes were destroyed. In the humanitarian, in the social aspects, we do not manage to cope with it. But again, half of the country have become IDPs now, and it is a new issue about stereotypes. We would like to add to what Evgenia said. My name is Natalia. Pravo na Zachist is the name of my NGO, and our work is about the conflict between IDPs and the accepting communities, the accommodating communities. The conflict between those who went back and those who were there during the hot phase of the conflict. There are conflicts, there are sometimes they are of everyday character, sometimes of cultural character. It is also about different experiences because some people were under occupation, the others could go abroad and to come back. And because of these different experiences, their identities differ. And if those different identities come into contact, a conflict arises. And as for the prevention of conflicts, in which way it would be possible to address it? Volunteers and representatives of civic society are dealing with it. And for that reason, it's important to support only IDPs, but also to offer certain programs for volunteers and for representatives of the civic society, and maybe a training how you can work with traumatized people in Ukraine. Half of the population is traumatized. People have seen a lot during a very short period of time. And it was already said, maybe educational programs in order to enhance communication habits.
You can say a lot about it, but it's just an addition from my side. I also worked a lot in the field of conflicts, and it is also very characteristic for Ukraine, typical, that a lot of people who were in the eastern territories of Ukraine, at the demarcation line between Ukraine and Russia, had a lot impact of the Russian propaganda in this field, and there have been a lot of Russian narratives, and the reception of other countries is also impacted by this attitude which the people had in the eastern part of Ukraine. And also the eastern inhabitants have some stereotypes regarding the western inhabitants of Ukraine, but it is a little bit different situation when we compare 2014, because we had 1.7 million of IDPs that time, and now the situation changed. We have have more than 6 million people's IDPs in this part of Ukraine. And the people are also looking for somebody who is guilty. And it's the most the easiest way to say that guilty people are people who are in their surrounding. And there is an emotional coloring of these feelings. So there are a lot of organizations who work in this field, and we also need the civic society in order to improve such and to implement such projects. We need such platforms to work psychological with people who had traumatizing events in their life. And it's a must-have for Ukraine, and we are working on this on these subjects. And now we are going to the next speaker. It's Evgenia Bardyak. She is also deputy from the Ivano-Frankivsk regional council and also the representative of youth enlightenment in Ukraine. My name is Evgenia Bardyak. I'm in the civic sector since 1999 and almost 20 years. Since last year, I'm also the member of the Ivano-Frankivsk Regional Council. As on the 24th of February, the mass airstrikes and shelling started in Ukraine. There have also been strikes and explosions in Ivano-Frankivsk. It's in the western part of Ukraine. It is relatively safe. It's not at the front line. So, as a member of the Ivano-Frankivsk Regional Council, the leadership of the region didn't contact me as a member of the council, the regional council. Only 6 weeks after the start of the airstrikes, I was called because of some normal questions which didn't concern the war. If I didn't have any experience in the civic sector, they wouldn't know how to react. But I had this experience, so I knew what to do, because there was COVID crisis before, and in the western part of Ukraine there are some floodings, and because it is in the mountains, and I have experience how to react as a civic activist. So I had this experience. So I knew what to do. I worked with other NGOs and other civic activists in Ukraine. We started to communicate with the unknown civic activists in Ukraine who are now our partners. But at the times of the deep crisis, we didn't know who we are providing the information, but everything worked on the trust and on the contacts at the basis. The local authorities didn't know what to do. Today we heard Yaroslav, who is working in the eastern part of Ukraine, Evgenia, who is in Kiev, and I'm in the western part of Ukraine. We do not know each other before today, but all of us are speaking about the same question. The authority didn't know what to do. They didn't react because they just didn't know what to do. And one of my theses I have is that it is necessary first, primarily to train the authorities, the state authority, what is crisis management, what is crisis communication, so that they can react in times of crisis. Because a crisis is just an algorithm. It doesn't matter whether it is a flood, a war, a COVID. The algorithm should be the same, it should function. At the moment, we do not have such an algorithm. At the moment, 9 months after the start of the war, there are some points of restoration for accommodations of the IDPs, of bomb shelters, organization bomb shelters. Everything is very chaotic. I think there should be a strategy developed at the local places, according to which it is possible to provide complex help for internally displaced persons in order to provide them accommodation, for organization of bomb shellings, because our children are still go to school offline. It's normally in countries which are not in the acute region, but there should be bomb shellings, and there should be understanding of how they are organized. We need a strategy for help and also for the integration of the IDPs. There should be an initiative for help in general. The civic organizations provide their help in their way, and the state authorities or sometimes other representatives of international organizations are providing the help also in their manner. And sometimes there are overlaps. When in one community we have twice the same aid and another community doesn't get any help. There is a lot of help in big cities. Small communities and villages, there are also IDPs. Such help is not possible and they do not get any humanitarian help for several months. In order to avoid something like that, we need a systematization of writing. How to organize this, it's our task, our duty to think about it, as NGOs, as the state authorities, and also the donation organization, in order to cooperate between, particularly the cooperation between the NGOs and the state authorities. There should be cooperation which should be set up. Not that NGOs go to the state authorities and plea for help, but to have a cooperation in a scenario, so that we can have interaction and we can cooperate together. And my third point is that it is necessary to delegate the tasks from the state authorities to the civic community societies. I know that there is such a practice in the European countries, and such a practice should also function in Ukraine. That's my view. That's why when international institutions are helping the state authorities, I think they have to require from the state authority that some of functions, some of authorities or duties should be delegated to the NGOs with a good track of records and also reputation. Such NGOs who are entitled to have such a delegation. And at the very end, I would like to say that I had yesterday a statement here outside of the official meetings. The war will change everything. Ukraine will have a better life. No. In 2014, we also had a war in Ukraine, and the life didn't improve and didn't become better. Also now, I think that nothing is going to be changed if we do not start changing such things intentionally. What is necessary for it? Trainings and learning are important for it, because there are a lot of activists who died, who were really very respectful persons in the society. They were first persons who went to the war, and part of them also has already died. And so that the civic society can impact the power, the state authority, it is necessary to train this civic society. It is necessary to train new civic activists and to invest into education, into the civic education, so that the activists can control the state authorities, so that they cooperate with the state authorities. And third, they are getting this they're becoming the state authority. Thank you very much. I would like to visualize all these things. And if we go back to this roundtable next year, we are going to talk what we achieved within this year. And everything what you are talking about is already implemented or is being implemented in Ukraine. We'll be very glad and happy to see it. And I hope that we'll achieve that. Do you have questions to Evgenia? Yes. Yaroslav, please. Can you hear us? Yes, yes, I can hear. I learned Evgenia a while ago. She was a speaker at the forum in Ivano-Frankivsk. I think it was 1 year ago. It was Project USA. I would like to ask you, that's a remark and a question at the same time. You say that the state power, the state authorities cannot regulate, but cannot react, sorry. And I think that's different. They can react, but they cannot take over the responsibility and for such things, and there are no mechanism to take over the responsibility. How was it in your experience? Were the bureaucratic mechanism also disturbing the work in your territory? Because in the Donetsk region, as I see it today, when I see the emails, this liability is given to us. So there is a lot of moments where I think we are going to be liable for many things. Thank you very much. If there's a question and just now a remark, I have already answered this question as I see this. The state power didn't know how to react. They didn't want to, but they really didn't know how to react, because I cannot understand how they cannot want to react. I think there are no persons who would do that, but they didn't want to take over the responsibility. But later they started to do something as they had pressure from the civic society and from the donation organizations. Yeah, I see it like that, as I said before. Thank you very much. We had one more question, and just the last question to the speaker. If it is possible, we are going to the next one so that everybody can speak today. Wir hören gar nichts.
Now? Okay, I'll just repeat. Do you have experience with working with international humanitarian organizations? Are you distributing, for example, with them goods? And are you being trained by those organizations and prepared? Because as Ukrainian as such will be heading towards EU, you will have to get into the system of EU and learn what is the role of the NGOs in the EU system and how they are being how they are working in the system together with the local authorities. Of course, the local authorities need also assistance to understand what is the role and how they can be useful for the citizens. Thank you.
As NGO, we cooperate with international organizations, NGOs. There are also some of them, some representatives are here who were supporting us to provide aid and help to people. The local authorities also cooperate with the humanitarian organizations. But if I start talking about this topic, I think we would need some more time, because there are some aspects if you ask, I would like to also say that when the international organizations come to Ukraine with their aid, but it is very slow. They think it's fast, but it's very, very slow.
Now we are in the 9th month of the war, and the war has just started, and we are moving tiny steps. If we had more time, I could go deeper into it. Still, international humanitarian organizations are very slow in their reaction. It's my observation. Can we agree upon that if you want to receive a broader answer, you should come to Evgenia and she will share her experiences. It's really true that international donors insist that they have their own vision and they want to work only in certain locations. And if only 10,000 IDPs are at place instead of 100,000. They still do need help. And another thesis, we need a strategy. All the participants to the process need an understanding. Authorities, civic society, and IDPs. And when we have a strategy, a clear understanding, and a clear plan, everybody will understand where the resources are going into. As long as it is not the case, it is chaotic. And thank you. The next speaker, Kateryna Skrypova, Vostok-SOS. It is the organization which in the year 2014 who saved the life and psychological state of millions of Eastern Ukrainian refugees. The floor is yours, Ms. Kateryna. Good morning. Our organization was established in the year 2014 by the activists from Luhansk and Crimea, Euromaidan. We moved to Kiev. We set up an organization. We used to have an office in Severodonetsk focusing on the eastern part. We had numerous programs, notably also humanitarian programs in the year 2014-15. After that, we changed to educational programs until the 4th of February. The humanitarian portion was not big. After the 24th of February, we re-entered the old circle with humanitarian focus. We used to be 30 persons. Nowadays, we are more than 100. We are working almost everywhere in Ukraine. Here you see the regions which we covered with humanitarian aid, our directions, evacuation. More than 35,000 people could be evacuated. More than 3,000 of them were with restricted mobility. There are certain problems with state authorities. They do not work with single individuals who have restricted mobility. Yes, they take care of geriatric centers, but they do not work usually with the individuals. We have started a complex, starting from the obligation from the relatives to pick up, for example, the older lady in Bakhmut. We are renewing centers, geriatric centers. We have 2 such centers in the region Ivano-Frankivsk, and we take care of evacuating such old people. We have 3 offices in Dnipro, Kyiv, and Uzhhorod. We have storage facilities in Uzhhorod, and we have provided almost 4,000 tons of humanitarian aid. We have remitted many donations. We have a call center which accepts the calls currently. All in all, more than 4,000 calls. We provide also legal counseling, psychological support. We have mobile teams comprising psychic expert inter alia, whom before the full-scale incursion, our educational activity was strong. We are renewing it. We are starting a project on digital competences for teachers. We are renewing contacts to the teachers we had before the 24th of February. Currently, those people are scattered all over Ukraine, and we intend to educate teachers in other regions of Ukraine. We provide legal counseling and a secondary legal support, documentation of war crimes. We have cases which are taken to the Court of Human Rights. If you have questions. I came back from a monitoring mission shortly before. The route was the occupied regions of the region of Kharkiv and Donetsk. If I say it's horrible there, it's not even like that. Villages are completely destroyed, like Kupiansk. Our mission is to reach small locations which nobody can reach. They are destroyed, but still people remained there. And those people who remained, they will not go anywhere. It is a fact. We are trying to convince them. The story about the region of Kharkiv, they remained 2 weeks, and those who wanted to leave, they left, but all the others remained. They need support because they do not have anything. A good example, a colleague of ours is from Novoselovka, a region of Donetsk. His home has been destroyed. We visited it. His parents were in France, in Germany, and then they went back, and they are rebuilding their home, and they will not go anywhere. We have to understand it, and these people do need support. I do want that everybody hears me now. Thank you, Ms. Kateryna. Yes, we know home is home, and some people do not want to leave. It is difficult, and even if the people did not leave during the informational blockade, they will not do it now, and they need support, and it is a severe challenge for the whole Ukrainian society to help them to survive. We are moving on. If you have no questions for Kateryna, if you still have questions, you can put them later. It's important for us to be able to speak about it in order that you know what is happening within the Ukrainian society. Lilia is the next speaker. She is from the NGO Smart Association, and you'll hear something you have not before. Hello to everybody. It's a pleasure to see you and to see your interest towards Ukraine and towards events in Ukraine. It is about whether the Ukraine will persist and whether, consequently, the whole world will persist. In my own personal story, you can see a story of numerous people in Ukraine. I have 2 degrees. I am a doctor of philosophy. I'm advocating the rights of women. I worked since 28 years as a director manager with mass media, but also with industry. Nowadays, I do not have a home. My family has been separated since 9 months. I've been to Lviv, but my origins are from Kramatorsk. But I'm not complaining now. I posted today on Facebook. I could see yesterday how united our Ukrainian society is. Ukraine is persisting not because of the professionality of our armed forces, but also because Ukrainian people, every and each individual is united, and it is our victory. And the whole world has to hear us finally after the year 2014. Yesterday it was said the war in Ukraine started on the 24th of February. I've been to Donbass since 2014. I am an activist. I have awards, numerous awards. I know what it means, killings, not punished crimes. I know what it is when IDPs cannot find accommodation, not within Ukraine, not in any place. Since 2014, since 2024, more than 13,000 people were killed in Ukraine, and I cannot understand that the world did not hear it in the years 2014 and 15. I showed in my presentation Ukraine. You see the territory which with regions which used to be occupied. Some of those regions have been liberated, but what the Russians leave behind when leaving Liman, Sviatohirsk, Izum, it cannot be described in simple words. It is ruins, it is a genocide. Yesterday, I've heard you say genocide, but it was not confirmed by court. We are being killed as Ukrainians, children. 124 children were killed in Donbass, and more than 300 children were injured. Finally, you have to listen to it. Our organization was set up in the year 2016. We are 18 activists who are advocating women's rights and gender equality. We have united ourselves in order to establish a prenatal center in the liberated part of the region of Donetsk, because such center existed only in the city of Donetsk. The campaign was successful. In Kramatorsk, a prenatal center could be established. A new equipment was set up, new hospital departments. All this does not exist any longer because everything was moved and deliveries do not take place. We have addressed also labor rights. Before 2014, the gender gap in wages in the region of Donetsk was about 40%. In spite of the fact that there are more women than men, recommendations were elaborated for our authorities to enhance the situation. We were rewarded by the global agreement of UN. We are fighting violence, and we have established an advocating campaign in June 22. We could achieve ratification of the Istanbul Convention. It was very important that women started to be heard. Together with Drukarnya, with our partner organization, 35% of women are serving in the armed forces of Ukraine.
Also in the security field, 15% of women are also working, also on the military service in Ukraine. Hear this, please. This also the proof that Ukraine is very civilized also in this aspect. But the war started on the 24th of February. And the whole organization Sparta, as well as 70% of the inhabitants of the Donetsk region had to be evacuated. We didn't have any question to ask what we are going to do in evacuation. Started on the first day, I went from Kramatorsk to Lviv, and from the very first day, I started to be a volunteer. It was not difficult because the civic sector is very active in the horizontal way. So, and there are a lot of coalitions who help each other to live, to stay alive. It is also the explosion at the railway station, in our railway station. People were staying there. So you can see the first picture, how many people were there. 4,000 people were standing there, and the missile struck. It's our family, Natalia, Yaroslav, our family, Stepanenko, who were at that time at the railway station. Now they were helped. There are a lot of people like that, a lot of families. A lot of good friends of mine died at the time at our railway station. We changed our format, and starting on the 24th of February, we had the priority, the humanitarian aid. The help to communities who are taking IDPs, also to home people, to accommodations for all elderly people. At this time, there have been tons of humanitarian help in the eastern part of Ukraine. I also spoke about the networks and cooperation of the NGOs in Ukraine. It has a very big meaning for Ukraine. There is a coalition in the Donetsk region, and this coalition was founded last year. It's the name of the coalition 1325. Yes, we were united by the resolution 1325 and our national plan of actions. Today, we are very thankful because we set up a lot of contacts online, and starting from the first day, we could have meetings online and we could support each other. Today, owing to our coalition, we can work and can provide informative consultation, legal consultation, psychological consultation. We can be volunteers and we can provide social services to vulnerable groups of the society. Today, the coalition joined the organization Bude Dobre, which was founded by Yaroslav Boyko. These contacts are very tight, and these contacts help us to live and to stay alive. The resolution 1325, which united our coalition, it is very important that NGOs do not forget about their main mission in that activity. According to 1325, you know that in 2016, Ukraine adopted the first national plan of action. It's the only country which adopted the first national plan of actions during a war. And today we have some achievements. The civic sector initiated some changes and amendments in this national plan. We have already named the targeted groups of the society. These are people who stay in the occupied territories, people who were deported to the Russian Federation, people who are forced for refugees, because people who are now here in Europe are not people who wanted to be here, not migrants, but these are forced refugees. And just believe they want to go home. They are waiting with their suitcases and won't go home to Ukraine, back to Ukraine with their bags and to go back. And people do not want to be integrated. They want to Ukraine to win in this war and to go back. You have one more minute. Another mission which we have, these are our international projects. We keep implementing the project together to the democracy. We speak with the organization EFA Berlin and also the foundation, Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and it is about the participation of women in the policy. And just believe that will be reality because it is a part of the 1325. And we can speak a lot. We can speak a lot about us and about our pain, but I want to turn to everybody so that everybody can hear that Ukraine is fighting and Ukraine will win, and it will be our mutual victory. Believe in our victory as we live in our victory, believe in our victory, and help us with your political support, with your civic activity, with sanctions, with weapons, with a closed airspace and support of refugees, and with your aid to overcome the energetic crisis, help Ukraine to protect itself and the whole world and all our democratic achievements. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lilia, for this format. I thought that in comparison to 2014, Ukraine learned to formulate the expression, to express the needs of Ukraine. It is a very important step, and I have a compromise decision. If you have any questions, probably you can ask your questions after the last talk of Maria. We want I think if you would have 10 hours, we would find a lot of topics. 10 hours we would have a lot of topics to talk today. But I would like to give the floor to the next speaker, and if you have questions, I would ask you to ask your questions probably during the coffee break. During the time of the coffee break, we can shorten it. I would like to say that we do have not only civic organizations, but also volunteers who do a lot in order to have some valuable events. And such an activist is also Maria Hudino-Stern, and she's going to talk about her activity, what is she doing. Good morning to everybody. I'm Slovyansk, the Donetsk region, and for me the war started when I was a child. It doesn't matter what everybody is saying about 2014, but you do not know the feelings a child could have who is sitting at school on the sitting in school and we hear explosions. Now I'm an adult person, I'm 22, but it's very difficult for me to tell you about all these events. I experienced 8 months of the war in the Donetsk region. I woke up and heard explosions. I went to Svetohirsk and Liman and I heard explosions, and it made me to such a person since 2014. Why did I stay there? Why is it so important to be an activist in the civic society? To 2014, I was 15. I went to the NGOs and started to be a volunteer. I started to build a building with bricks, and I was at the age of 15. And I heard a lot of stories what people experienced during 2014. I visited a lot of trainings, educational measures. I know how to provide the first aid. I know what to do during the military actions. Then, in 2014, I thought that it is more secure to go to the 5th floor and not to go to the shelter, to the basement. And it was very good that people understood that I didn't know that it is more secure to be in the basement. I visit my psychotherapist and everything is okay. But during this time, I learned to drive a car. I learned to fire out of a gun, of a rifle, and I can provide first aid, and I can do everything. I want to do everything so that Slovyansk is Ukraine and the Donetsk region is Ukraine, because there is nothing more important in my life. I do not stick to my apartment. There is no, there are no windows. It is not possible to live in this apartment. I'm IDP from Slovyansk and Kramatorsk. I saw a lot of pain, like the organizations, those who were not mobile, who had to leave the Donetsk region. Sometimes I bring humanitarian aid, hygienic articles to such people. And I know if the city will be occupied or not, that the person will die in her or his apartment. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I never cry in the Donetsk region. During the whole war, I was only 1 hour in the basement, and now it's very difficult for me because the war is coming also here. And I would like to say about Svitogirsk. I went there when the front line was probably 4 kilometers from Svitogirsk. There are some mountains in this region. It's the best city in the Donetsk region where you could have your holiday. There are also old monasteries, nice fir forest there, and probably you have seen this city. If you do not know, just Google the city, the name of the city, and now the city is absolutely damaged and destroyed. And you understand that the villages around the city are almost completely destroyed. Each second building is destroyed, and those are ruined. Democracy is very cool. We try to be a democratic state. We try to be to move forward together with you, and I want to do that. I don't want to live in Russia, and nobody of us wants to live in Russia, but it's very difficult to speak about democracy if you have a war. And when missiles are coming down at night on you, we cannot meet to such a round table to speak about our future plans. We think there how to live, to stay alive, how we can help other people. And we do not have questions. I just started my activity. I started to write to all NGOs, and I'm now also working for an NGO. But I understand that the organizations, such organizations, have to be more flexible, because there are organizations which help 10,000 of people, 20,000 people. We provide everything, water pumps and briquettes and everything people need. We have a lot of budget. But I call a colleague in the NGO and say Svitogirsk needs help now. And we cannot come, and the organization cannot come because we have projects. 1 month and a half is coming. Probably I will come after the 1st of January in the next year. And we just had some donations. I just collected some donations so that the tractors can remove the garbage there, and that they have some electricity, and probably many within an hour afterward, a person from the emergency services were just died on the mine there afterward. The Ukraine is developing very, very fast, and the war forced us to do that. Germany and Poland could probably be a little bit more faster in their help, because we don't have any time. People are dying. It's not nice, it's not cool, it's very painful, and people who are going to have a lot of psychological help afterwards, they had psychological treatment after 2014, and they will have such treatment later. I'm in the secure surrounding, but I do not feel well because I know that there is war in Ukraine. If you have any questions, I will be glad to answer them.
Дуже дякую, Марія. Я зараз хочу
Thank
трошки
you,
дати
Maria.
Марії час прийти в себе і хочу сказати,
I'd
що мені
like to
здається,
give
що так само
Maria some
виглядає душа
time
кожного
to
українця.
recover.
От
I
коли ми
can tell
відчуваємо
you
ці дії, це те, що
it's the
відбувається з нашою
soul
війною. Вам
of
дуже дякую
every
за щирість, тому що
single
ми можемо
Ukrainian.
скликати великі симпозіуми,
You
ми можемо робити дуже
feel
багато
the
роботи по
pain. We can
адвокації, по
organize a
просуванню інтересів України на
symposium.
міжнародній
We can
арені, але
do
є ще такий аспект, як
advocating
гуманітарна
work,
допомога, і є
but
те, що дійсно ми
there is
відчуваємо,
still
тому що ми
humanitarian
велика
need for
демократична прекрасна
humanitarian
країна,
aid.
але сусід, який поруч з нами, не
We
дає
are
нам
a big
відчувати себе
democratic
в
country,
безпеці. І це
but
страшно.
our
І от
neighbor
сльози
prevents
це те, що у нас є
us
у світі, які
from
ми
being
працюємо.
in
Але це дуже
security.
важливо українському
We have tears in
суспільству.
our
Це не
eyes,
заважає рухатися далі.
but
Це
still
заважає нам робити
it does
такі
not
речі, і ті люди
impede
рвуть,
our
тому що люди, як це
movement
робити? Можливо, на ви, як
forward.
громада,
Often
тільки
I'm
виходять
asked,
провокації, а ті
how can you
волонтери, які соціальний
cope with
капітал,
it?
біжуть, навіть не питаючи, чи розміновано,
Volunteers
тому що
are
їх
very, as soon as some territory has been liberated, they are moving towards the place with humanitarian aid. Our diplomats, their hearts
але вони йдуть і працюють. Я просто
are
хочу дати подяку, що наше
bleeding,
українське громадянське суспільство, воно неймовірне.
even
Воно дуже ресурсне,
if
воно дуже
airstrikes
потужне. Ми
come.
можемо
Our
працювати
society is a strong one. We want to develop. We are in Ukraine. We can be effective if we do not have fighting, when our children do not cry, and will work on gender issues, other crises. And I strongly hope we'll be able to do it soon. But we need support from the international society. We have touched only upon some single issues, but still we have ecology and other issues, numerous, a huge work. Igor? We are late
Hi, I would like
now.
to, it's half a question, but it's also half comments. First, many thanks to everyone who is here. Many thanks for all the stories. Many thanks for everything that has been shared. Many thanks for all the work by these great impressive activists that have been speaking today, that I have the honor to know in many cases, that I've been working also in the last couple of years with. So the first reference that I would like to take is like to the colleague from the Polish Humanitarian Action who had mentioned that there is the need for Ukrainian activists also to be more involved in like aligning to European standards, to European donor requirements. And on the one hand, yes, this is true, but what is often overseen, and this was, I think, raised quite well in the last couple of sessions, that the Ukrainian civil society context is not new, not young anymore. Like since 2014, but already before, like since the Orange Revolution, people have been actively involved in different civil initiatives. Of course, there were massive regional differences. They still prevail between how civil society emerged in the west of the country, in the north and in the east and southeast. But I mean, this is a different question, but overall, what has emerged, what has been developing over the last couple of years already provided a quite strong foundation for certain resilience, which then started, which not started but continued in fact within reinvasion by Russia in February. The second comment regarding is this like the sense of capacity building that many INGOs, and I've been working with a couple of INGOs in the last couple of years in the Ukrainian context, like what is the purpose of the capacity building? What does it serve? Like, does it just serve donor needs? Does it just serve to manage the internal structures? Or does it really anyhow like contribute to developing also the organizations?
Чи то потрібні організації на місцях? Один приклад, який я хочу зараз навести. Марія згадувала про це, і Катерина з Vostok-SOS говорили про людей з обмеженими здатності. Я працював.
The question was also like, how much does, and this is a very cynical question in this context, but how much is an organization willing to pay for every beneficiary, and this is a massive problem then when it comes like to working with different groups with certain vulnerability, and it shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be a problem, but then these INGOs who are reporting to other international donors have their own vulnerability criteria, they have their own beneficiary list, they have their target goals that they need to fulfill, and all the internal problems, the internal mess that they have then as an organization, in fact, they are then just allocating to the organization on the ground who are in fact doing most of the work. And I think if we have the opportunity to be in touch here as representatives of INGOs, some donors and civil society who is actually doing this amazing work and most important work on the ground, then I think it's maybe up time, and it should be the time, or it should have been the time already many years ago, to question these structures in general and like to think about what can INGOs and donors provide to the people on the ground, and to make them actually, to empower them in a way how they need them in continuing the great work that the colleagues have presented today here on the stage. Like, these are my thoughts. Це все.
Thank you for your addition, for your comment. I see the time for this roundtable has elapsed already. I'd like to say firstly, if you register, if you have not done it, please indicate your email address. What we have discussed today, we still have some questions we would like to systemize. We made a draft notation. We would like to elaborate recommendations, and if you want, we would like to share this document with you in Ukrainian, in English. And now I would like to apologize that we started later. There was some issue with the interpretation, but we could solve this technical issue. And now we have to work on this joint document. I wish you successful future roundtables. Thank you for your attention and for your participation.